Whiteboard Wisdom. Karl Rove, former Deputy Chief of Staff to President George W. Bush and Fox News contributor. Karl, great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
When you start hearing about investments in people and reforming the tax code, it's pretty easy to sort of translate what that means, right? Massive spending and increasing taxes pretty dramatically across the board. Corporations, I think, would be up about 9%. Here's Janet Yellen explaining the policy as she sees it today.
Investments in people, investments in infrastructure will help to create good jobs in the American economy, and changes to this tax structure will help to pay for those programs.
So that's how they see it done. Karl?
Well, that's not exactly what we hear. That may not be the reality. Last year, the Tax Foundation did a study of the Biden tax increase, and they said that if it were passed in its nature as it was last year, which is smaller than the $3 trillion we're talking about now, the GDP of the country, the gross domestic product, would be 1.6% less than it would otherwise be. The capital stock, that's the pool of money that we have to invest in new plants and equipment and manufacturing processes, and jobs would be down about 3.75%. The wage rates, the money that we would get paid would be roughly 1.15% less than it would be otherwise. And jobs, there'd be 542,000 fewer jobs than we would be talking about otherwise if the Biden tax plan, as it was outlined last year in the campaign, was talked about. All those effects would be even worse if the tax plan is bigger, along the lines of the $3 trillion you're talking about. Now, just to the back of the envelope scratches, how does that compare to the tax increases we've had before? It would be roughly equivalent to 1.4% of our GDP. That is to say, we've got a $21 trillion plus gross domestic product, the value of everything that's manufactured, made, sold in the United States, and it would be roughly $300 billion in that first year, or roughly 1.4%. It would be the fifth largest tax increase in America's history. The Revenue Act of 1942, we're fighting a world war, 5.6% of GDP. The Revenue Act of 1941, we're getting ready to fight a war and we're getting prepared, 2.2. The Revenue and Expenditure Act of 1968, height of the Vietnam War, LBJ passes a bill that represents 1.7% of the GDP. And the Revenue Act of 1951, we're involved in Korea and trying to rebuild Europe after World War II, 1.5. It would be the fifth largest tax increase in America's history if it were passed, measured by its share of the gross domestic product.
Yeah. And no discussion at all about cutting anything. I can't remember the last time I heard anyone propose cutting anything in spending, Republicans or Democrats.
It's all about spending more, more.
It's mind-boggling. Karl, thank you very much. Great to have you here, as always.